Hare Krishna. So when it comes to karma, there's a very common question. If I don't remember what I did, how is it fair that I should pay for it now? So the idea, of course, in the law of karma is that you're living today, the result of your activities realized in the distant past, sometimes many lifetimes away, not only just like the last lifetime, but it talks about like hundreds of lifetimes ago. So how could that be fair? So here's an example to help you understand this important point about karma. For example, let's say there's a very courageous fireman and he rushes into the burning building to save the poor baby that's been left in some apartment. So he rushes in and he's there and he saves the baby, and just as he's coming out, he hands the baby, but somehow like something falls on his head, like a beam falls on his head, and he has amnesia. He wakes up in hospital and he doesn't remember anything that happened. So then I ask you, should we still treat that fireman as a hero even though he can't remember what he did? Or should we all just pretend he didn't do anything? Just don't even say anything. Don't give him a medal. Don't even say thank you because he can't remember it. That wouldn't make sense, right? You'd say, no, that doesn't matter if he remembers or not. He's still a hero, right? So he still deserves to have the credit of what he did. Now, imagine another situation. Imagine you have some crook, and this crook is running away from the cops. He's a horrible person. He's committed murder. He's running away. And as he's running away, again, he trips and falls down the steps, and he gets amnesia. And he wakes up in jail and says, wait a second, why am I in jail? I can't remember anything. It's not fair that I'm in jail. I can't remember what I did, so I shouldn't be in jail. Should we release that crook? Oh yeah, you're right. He can't remember. No, really, he can't remember. So, yeah, all right. Let him go then. Right, that wouldn't make sense, right? So he's still responsible. He still has to pay for his crime, even though he can't remember what he did. So that's one thing about karma. Another thing that's really important, however, which few people understand, is that the idea of the law of karma isn't like, oh, you did this, so you have to get that. No, there's a process of learning, of like not needing that learning education anymore of the experience. And the idea then is that if you're going through something now, it's not the actual thing you did that you're paying for, it's the mentality you had when you did that thing, which you still have with you today. Do you see the difference? So let's say, give a simple example. Let's say you were lying. Let's say you lied and your lie caused harm. Lying always causes harm, but let's say it was like a particularly bad kind of lying that really harmed someone. So you lied in some lifetime. Now that tendency to lie, so the act itself, you lied and this happened. Okay, so that you generated some bad karma from that. But why would you live that karma today? Like maybe just keeping it simple, somebody would lie to you and cause you harm. Why would you experience somebody lying and deceiving you today? Well, because that tendency to lie and deceive, which you practiced in another life, is still within you. Do you understand? You'd only experience that situation if you still need the education related to that fault. So that's the idea of karma. We only experience karma that we actually still need education for. We haven't overcome the tendency. Even though we can't remember what we did, it doesn't really matter, because the tendency that made you commit that mistake, or again, that made you do that nice thing, the positive good karma thing, is still within you. So you experience today what's still true to you today. That's why it's also very fair, the law of karma. Even if you don't remember exactly what happened, but the thing itself, the tendency itself, is within you. And that's why if you study the Bhagavad Gita, you'll see Krishna explaining a technique called Gyana Yoga in chapter 4. In chapter 4 of Bhagavad Gita, he explains Gyana Yoga. And then if you pay attention to Gyana Yoga, especially verse 37 of chapter 4, you'll see that he says that through the practice of Gyana Yoga, you burn your karma just as fire burns log to ashes. Why? Because the process of learning, the process of seeking out to become a better person, learning the mistakes. I want to be a good person. Maybe that's what you're doing here on this channel. I'm trying to be a better person. I'm trying to overcome my faults. I want to become, a pure person. I want to become enlightened. So as you're trying to become enlightened in the path of yoga, you're trying to become the best person possible, the most right, you're trying to become correct and dharmic. I don't like the term righteous, but like being right, like being like a good person, like morally correct. So that process of seeking out within you, oh yes, there's a tendency for me to lie, so I will not lie. The yamas and niyamas in the path of yoga, one of them is not lying, for example, right? So as you're trying to be like, oh no, I'm not going to lie because that's not the best version of myself, so I won't commit harm. Himsa, I won't lie. I won't steal. Those are all like the yamas. So you have these yamas. And in other religious paths you have, the commandments, thou shalt not this. So as you're like, no, that's what I'm going to do now. I don't want to commit those things. So then by doing that, I understand that lying is bad. I understand that committing undue violence is bad. So as you learn these things, Gyana, as you assimilate this wisdom, then you burn the karma that you might have had to go through. That's what Krishna says. You won't have to go through that karma anymore because you've kind of you've tested out of it. Like you can maybe you never went to high school, but you can do like some exam and then you test out, right? You test out of classes. Like, look, I can prove that I don't need to do this class. I can test out of it. So with karma, it's the same thing. You test out of your karma by seeking to become this better person, by doing your best. And again, if something does happen to you, that's why in yoga, when something does happen, whatever happens, the yogic mentality is, okay, fine, I accept this. I have something to learn from this. Whatever it is, I have something to learn from this. And we always have something to learn from whatever happens. We never think we're so special that nothing bad should happen to me. The yogi doesn't think like that. He thinks, whatever happens to me, there's something I can learn. At the very least, everyone, especially the yogi, he can learn to become more detached of material nature, and he can learn the importance of seeking liberation from the karmic cycle. At the very least, he says, yes, this is good because I was getting a little too attached here, and it's better I focus on leaving this material world, attaining kaivalya, becoming free from this material entanglement. At the very least, so whatever happens to you, at the very least, you can say, okay, that's going to make me more detached and more interested in seeking liberation. But, if you look a little deeper, you might say, oh yeah, I still have the tendency maybe to deceive people. Oh yeah, I still have a tendency. Oh yeah, sometimes I'm a bit, violent with my words. I still hurt people with, maybe there's some other deeper lesson there too. So that's why, I hope that makes it clearer now. That's why it does make sense that you live today karma that you might have done, like actions that you've done in the distant past, which you cannot remember. If there are any questions, leave some comments here. I read all the comments and I would love to answer your questions. Hare Krishna.